After removing the sash, you'll want to crank down the mechanism flat. All right. Now we'll flip the unit over. Now we're going to put mulling caps on an aluminum mulling bar. There are two different directions. There's an interior, which has a much smaller extruded profile than the exterior. The exterior has a bigger standoff. So
show me both of those again. Just a little closer. Which one's the interior?
The smaller one is the interior, the bigger one is the exterior.
Okay.
Also noting that when this is mounted to the frame, it will be typically flush to the inside and recessed about 1/8 of an inch for the exterior to make up the difference in the sizing. What I like to do is so then we'll take in order to get these molded together, you'll need to cut this little ear off. And you may need to trim this little piece here. Just so it's cleaned up a little bit. So this fits in flush, and then you'll clamp in the back side. There we go. And then we'll put in a screw. You can actually put it on each extrusion. Put a small bead. Put a small bead on this one.
Can we pour out that cotton?
A continual bead helps fend off any moisture intrusion. You don't need much caulking on the interior, maybe just a tiny little bead to hold it if it's loose, but normally these aren't loose, and they take quite a bit of effort to slide in and out. So. You may want to use something at the very end. I like to clamp it where I'm going to screw it, so I'll do these two end holes first, and then we'll move the clamps and do each spot. Now we prefer to use self-tappers that are hex head screws. They give us a little bit more driving force, and they tend not to strip out like the Phillips heads. It's your preference. We just find this a little easier for us to do. And PGT caps will fill these holes. All right, so now we're going to prep the stationary panel that goes in between the two operable casements. If it comes prepped from the factory with these removed, fine. If not, then we basically have to remove these. There's a small line, indentation line in the frame. You run your razor knife down this about 2 or 3 times and it will cut it. And I'll actually start from this direction on the ends just to get them cut square. And And then I will just run my razor knife gently down the inside, probably 3 passes. Also cutting this straight. And 1 or 2 more passes will usually do it. Doesn't take much force, just a good straight line. If it doesn't cut through on the first couple times, just come back and score it again. Will help in snapping it free on the final snap. It's really not much to clean up because it cuts in between the grooves, so. And you can just make sure you peel off everything.
Yeah.
This will be the final mulling between the 2 operable and the fixed center unit. The fixed center unit is pre-drilled as well, but you will have to remove the factory track cover down each side to gain access. I like to use a dull oyster knife. Seems to work really good. So what we have here is an issue where the frame extrusion hasn't been completely trimmed. So the frame extrusion is sticking out about 1/4 inch at the bottom and flush at the top. This will need to be removed prior to mulling. Same technique for the flange. Just run your razor knife down and trim that. Okay, what I like to do is lift up the window a little bit, just a hair, about 3 inches. And lift this one up as well. And mate it together with the bottom first, like that. And then bring it down. There we go. All right, just flush it up. Let me get the clamps. So the proper technique for installing one of these drip edges is to gently remove the outer rim. In order to get it to fit into the space. But the problem we're running into is that this bracket is impeding in this seating flush. So if this bracket is removed, then this piece will actually lock in and sit totally flush and glue into where it's supposed to sit. With this bracket, it does not. So I suggest removing either 1/8 of an inch from either side, because you have, with the bracket installed, more than, or you have less than 4 9/16, which will be your typical wall cavity. So there should be plenty of room to actually move this upward by cutting that. So I'm gonna go to the cordless chop saw now and remove this meat, slide these in, and then we'll be able to run the cap into the location, backfill this with silicone, and install this, creating a waterproof area. After assembly, putting the stops back in. Once again, we're going to trim the flashing. And this flashing will go right here. Okay. So what we're going to do first is we're going to clean up any of the little loose edges, knock down anything so this seats in as flush as possible. So the storm anchor fits into the frame and can expand or contract depending on what needs to happen with screwing. What we want to do is create a plug of caulking on the back side of this.
Watch out with it.
On the back side of this here. So that it creates a big plug for it to seal up, and we'll actually seal this right here as well, okay? And that goes into the unit. And creates a plug. Okay, and at this point, then we'll come and finish filling the rest of the cavity with caulking. Then we'll also put caulking along the back side of this. And down inside this void, creating a plug on either side so water cannot go in between the frame. All right. Just snap it and flash it. Let it glue in place. And let it dry. We're going to show this cap technique again, but this one locks together a little bit better. Bring it down across the front edge and then install the flashing across. Pushing it down into the frame, and then be careful not to have a bunch of caulking go into the window itself. And that has made basically a waterproof barrier.